Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. My name is Ysis. I'm originally from Brazil and I've been living in the UK for the last 10 years. And this video is going to be about simple habits that you can do to improve your English language skills. I've done quite a lot of English language videos here on my channel, so I'll leave a playlist linked in the description box below. I started making these English videos because I used to get lots of questions about where my accent was from and how I got a British accent, how I learned English. So about 5 years ago, I made a video called How I Became Fluent in English, and that's been a really popular video of mine, my most popular video on my channel. And then I did another video on how I got a British accent. That also has been a really popular video, so I carried on making these videos talking about my experience as a student and learning English as a second language, and loads of you have said it's been helpful to you. So this video is kind of a follow-on from previous videos that I've done on tips on how to improve your English, but this also contains things that I've learned over the last few years, habits that I've changed and things that I've tried to make better to improve my English even more. So definitely check out the playlist below after you watch this video. There's so many videos for you to catch up on if you're new to my channel. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to share it with your friends as well. And I would love to get to know you guys a bit more and to know who's watching my videos. So if you don't mind, I'd love for you to comment below, tell me your name, where are you from, and how you found my channel. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that when I cut to the next clip, things might look slightly different, and that's because I'm filming this part of the video on a different day. I actually filmed the entire video yesterday, but the footage got corrupted and I only have half the footage left. So I had to refilm this introduction on a different day. I tried to do my makeup the same, but I don't know if things like the lighting has changed or anything. So if things look a little bit different, that's because these two parts of the video were filmed on different days. So now let's get straight into the video. So my first tip is to forget word lists and keep an examples list. This is something that I've changed recently, and I find it so much more useful than having a big long list of new words that I learned with definitions but no real examples of how to use that word in context. And one personal thing that I struggle with the most in English language is prepositions. So whenever I find prepositions used correctly, I tend to write them down in my notes so that next time I need it, I know how to use that preposition properly. But you can do that with whatever new words you learn. Make sure you put an example attached to it. I seem to struggle a lot with means of transportation, especially things like in the taxi or on the taxi. This is the one that I struggle with the most to remember the correct one. So I have it written down on my phone, the correct one. So in the car, in the taxi, on the bus, on the plane, and I have that already written as a sentence so that whenever I'm in doubt, I know how to use it. But that applies to anything new that you learn. And to make it even more sophisticated, what you could do if you have the ability to do that on your phone, your iPad, or your computer is to record the pronunciation of that new word that you learned. So if you're ever in doubt as well, you've got everything in one place. I love being organized with my lists and things like that. I use an app called Notion to keep all my lists. I'll leave it linked below. It's a free app that you can create a free account, and it's a brilliant note-taking app. So this is where I keep all of my new words list in Notion, and you can attach pictures, you can attach voice notes, videos, links, or anything like that. So I like to keep my little examples list organized, and that's a lot more useful to me than just a plain simple word definition list. Tip number 2 is to play the foreigner card, because you can. If you're in the middle of a conversation and you simply cannot remember the word that you're trying to say, you've tried everything and you can't remember, just say, I know it in my native language, but I don't know it, or I can't remember it in English. It's a bit cheeky, but it seems to work to kind of make me feel a little bit less nervous if I can't remember a word. It's a point of conversation, so it makes the other person a bit more interested in your background, so they can ask you what's your native language. You can then try and say that word in your native language to see if it rings a bell to the other person. I just find it's a good technique when everything fails and I cannot remember the word for the life of me. So yeah, play the foreigner card, play the non-native speaker of English card whenever you need it. Tip number 3 is one that I've learned through teaching my children to read and write, and that is to learn your phonics. Learn how to sound out the letters rather than just learning how to say it in English. It will help you so much with your spelling, your writing, your reading, and there's loads of YouTube videos for kids that teach that very, very easily. I know it's a bit silly if you're an adult and you're watching a child's video on YouTube, but that's the best thing for learning phonics, and I've learned so much through teaching my kids. That's not something I learned when I was learning English in an English school. I think English schools tend to focus on teaching you the letter names but not the letter sounds, and that is so much more useful. So learn how to sound the alphabet like A, B, K, D, is a lot more useful to you to put these words, these letters together to make words rather than knowing A, B, C, D, E, because that's not how the letters actually sound when you make words. So I'll leave a few links below to some YouTube videos that I do with my kids and some books as well that I find helpful. Tip number 4 is to figure out what's the best method for you to learn. Everyone learns differently and everyone has a preferred method. Some people like reading, some people learn really well through writing, others through speaking. So find out what's the best method for you and focus on that. For me, my favorite method is speaking and then writing. That's how I consolidate all of my learning. That's what I find works best for me. Tip number 5 is to read for the general meaning first. And that applies to conversations as well. So if you're in the middle of a conversation with someone and you don't know a word that they said, try and understand the general meaning of that conversation. And if you can, then let that word slide. Unless you're really curious about what it means and you just want to ask out of curiosity, but try and understand the general meaning before stopping to look up different words, because that will slow you down, and it sometimes can get disheartening if you're reading a book and you can't quite read the book through because you keep having to stop to find words that you don't know. So if you get the general idea of what the book is about, or the story or the article, whatever it is that you're reading, then that flows a lot better and it's a little bit less distracting for you. And if you're in a conversation, it's less distracting for the other person that you're talking to. Tip number 6 is to change the settings of your phone and your social media to English. You'll learn so much just by scrolling through social media and being exposed to English that way. But what I find really, really helpful about this is when I'm talking to other people about a specific social media or setting of my phone, I know exactly how to refer to these things in English. So let's say you're talking to a friend about Instagram and you've got your Instagram in English settings, then you know that your homepage is called your feed. But if your settings are not in English, then you might call it something different. So yeah, that's just a handy little everyday tip. It helps you on normal situations like with your friends and family, but it also helps you to constantly see English in front of you. Tip number 7 is to practice tongue twisters. I've done a whole video on tongue twisters, so I'll leave a link below for you to check it out. But Google tongue twisters and just practice as many as you can. That will help your pronunciation, it will increase your vocabulary. It's just a really great, fun way of practicing English, and I really like challenging myself to the really hard tongue twisters. So yeah, check out the video that I did. I think it was last year, but yeah, it was quite funny because some of them are really tricky and I just could not do them. Tip number 8. Try to learn the stresses in words and sentences in English. That will make a big difference in how natural you sound when you're speaking English, because every language has different stresses in different places. For example, my native language is Portuguese, and the word for therapist in Portuguese is terapeuta. So the stress for the word terapeuta is on the peu. If I were to use the same stress for that word as therapist, I would say therapist, and that's not correct. So learning where the correct stress is, therapist, not therapist, makes a big difference in how natural and fluent you sound in English. Tip number 9 is to consume and then create. I love writing summaries about everything that I consume, not everything, but anything that's thought-provoking, that makes me think, that I find interesting. I like to write notes on it and expand on what I learned. I love doing that with podcasts at the moment. That really helps expand your vocabulary, your fluency as well, because you're listening to something and then you're writing it down and expanding on that idea. And as I said before, writing after I listen or say something is the best way for me to consolidate my learning and to make me memorize it better. And finally, tip number 10, don't compare your start with someone's end. Try not to compare your learning journey with someone else's journey. If you're watching this video and thinking, I don't know English as much as she does, I'm not as fluent as she is, please don't do that to yourself. You might be at the very start of your journey whilst I'm already 10 years, 15 years ahead of you, and it's not fair on you to expect that you'll be at that same level. Or even if you've been learning English for 30 years, longer than I have, maybe you're on a different path and you are more experienced in different areas than I am, or you didn't have as many opportunities or as much time, or you're just on a different path to me or anyone else. So don't compare yourself to your friends, your colleagues, your school friends, anyone. Your journey is your own, and as long as you're making progress every day, you're doing well. So that's it from me. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to forward it to your friends, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.